Hello, everybody. I will call this meeting of the Public Works Commission to order at 4:01 now that we have a quorum. And I will start with a roll call. So please let me know you're here when I call your name. Commissioner Ellis.
Here.
Commissioner Hilton.
I'm here.
Commissioner Morgan. Commissioner Collette.
Here.
Commissioner Crowley.
Here.
Awesome. All right. So the next order of business is the approval of the minutes from our regular meeting on December 1st. And I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Crowley.
I would move to accept the minutes from our last meeting as distributed.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Chair, I'll second that.
A second from Commissioner Collette. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, the same sign? Hearing none, the motion carries. With that, we will go to our agenda items, and the first item is the Boise Municipal Irrigation District 2022 assessment, and I will turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Chair Gravatt. And I've got to ask the question of Commissioner Crowley. That background location does not look like Boise, Idaho. I'm just curious where you are.
Good catch, Steve. We are celebrating a family reunion on the island of Kauai.
Oh.
And if it's helpful, I will turn off video and mute. So
No, it's actually quite helpful.
We're
It's
here.
inspiring with all our snow.
It's actually pretty soothing, and so given the agenda, I thought it would be helpful to have some keep the discussion light.
I appreciate it, Commissioner Crowley. We've got lots of snow out here, so thank you. So I'll turn it over, Chair Gravatt, I'll turn it over to John Gunnarsson. He's going to give a very brief presentation on the assessment background information, and then we'll move on. A motion is required for this particular item. So John, you want to jump in?
Yes, thank you, Steve. Are you able to hear me and see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Yes, Chair, members of the Commission, good evening. My name is John Gunnarsson, and I'm mostly you'll hear me talking about geothermal, but tonight I'm here speaking towards our municipal irrigation district. On that note, briefly, Chair Gravatt, I do want to thank you really briefly for agreeing to take part in the geothermal co-creation session scheduled for next week. There we're going to be bringing together different community members, engineers, developers, building owners, public officials, and many more to discuss growth opportunities for our geothermal system. So I just want to thank you for joining us, fellow commissioners. I wish we could have further extended the invitation, but we are limited due to COVID protocols. So hopefully at the end of this design sprint session, we'll be able to provide an update to all of you. So sorry, back on track, back to municipal irrigation. There is a memo that was provided in the packet that basically walks through the reason we are here this evening, but I'm gonna take it a little bit further. Our Boise Municipal Irrigation District consists of providing pressure irrigation water to 13 subdivisions in West Boise. We're serving about 375 lots, and which equals about 55 acres. Here is a map kind of showing where these subdivisions are located. We're kind of at the crossroads here of 5 Mile and Fairview, with a couple of subdivisions north and south of this. So knowing that there are a few new members, and this comes up very infrequently, a brief history. In the early 1990s, our city council was concerned that surface water rights were not being protected as these farmlands were being developed into subdivisions. So then fast forward to 1997, the city formed an Irrigation Commission and adopted the irrigation ordinance, basically making it mandatory for all new developments that have surface water rights to install pressure irrigation systems. As part of that, these pressure irrigation systems need to be managed by somebody. And they can be managed by one of three entities, one being the irrigation district, the other being an HOA, or the third would be the city as the Boise Municipal Irrigation District. Most of the systems out there across the valley are managed by the irrigation districts or the HOAs, but there are these 13 subdivisions that the city manages. We took the first one on in 2001. So each year we must assess these properties for the operation and maintenance of these pressure irrigation systems. So these assessments, they include everything from the irrigation and drainage assessments to our operation costs to cross charges, indirect cost. We're also putting money aside for depreciation, reserve of our replacements. These assessment rates that we charge are charged per acre. And this year, we are proposing to not change the assessment rate and keep it the same at $935 per acre. The last time we changed the rate was back in 2018. And at the time we did a 4.5% increase, raising it from $895 to $935 per acre. Now, that does sound like a lot, but the average assessment cost here is about $168, $170 per lot that we serve this pressure irrigation water to. So the way we operate our municipal irrigation district, it falls under state statute for municipal irrigation systems, Title 15, Chapter 18, in which specific actions must be taken in the process of applying these assessments. And such, one of these is that what we're calling the Municipal Irrigation Board of Directors, which is our mayor and council, they must formally establish this assessment rate by mid-February. And then once this rate is established, then our mayor and council also sit as the Board of Corrections to sit and listen to any disputes that property owners may have in their assessment rate. And that typically happens in mid-March. Also, following state statute, properties that do not pay assessments, first they'll receive a bill, and then they'll receive a reminder letter. And then if we're still not receiving payment, it will go to our utility billing collections. And then if that is unsuccessful, then we do file a lien on properties that do not pay their assessments each year. And per state statute, we do have the ability to file a tax deed against the property after 3 years. We've never had to go that far, and hopefully we don't have to. This year specifically, for FY22, we are annexing 3 new subdivisions into our irrigation district. So there's definite growth opportunities here by looking at these existing systems and new developments. And so these 3 new that we're adding are Azure Meadows, phases 1, 2, and 3. And these are existing subdivisions with existing pressure irrigation. And we were contacted by the HOA to see if the city would take these over and take over operation and maintenance of them. So by annexing these in, we are adding 60 new lots, and it does come with 2 new pump stations that serve these lots. Looking at the map here, these gray lots, or these gray subdivisions, are currently served by our irrigation district. This is Bradford, Greystone, and Greystone 2. These 3 that we're taking on are contiguous to our existing systems that we serve. There is an opportunity for some economy of scale here. Basically, we could be serving all of these subdivisions by a single booster station, by a single pump station, therefore limiting the operation cost of having to operate 3 of these. But We're just taking these over. We're just annexing them here this year. We're going to operate it this year status quo with those existing booster stations. And then looking forward, we're hoping that we can consolidate these and get this economy of scale and lower our operation costs in this area. Staff is also reviewing other growth possibilities. There are a few other subdivisions that have expressed interest in connecting onto the Boise Municipal Irrigation District. And we're also looking closely at operation of certain laterals. The laterals are the delivery mechanism to bring the water from the canals to a subdivision. And if those laterals are not properly managed, then the surface water rights are at risk of being lost. So with that said, we are here this evening to formally make a recommendation to mayor and council as the BMID board of directors to set the assessment rate for FY22. I have a suggested motion here that we move for the approval for mayor and council of the Boise Municipal Irrigation District with an assessment rate of $935 per acre for FY22, which is unchanged from past years. That is all I have for a presentation, and I will stand for any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from my fellow commissioners? Commissioner Ellis.
Thank you. I just have one question. The alternative, if they didn't get on the irrigation district, then they would have to use Suez water, right? Is that for irrigation? That's the alternative.
That is the Commissioner Ellis. Thank you. That is the concern. Is if surface water rights are not maintained, then properties will resort to groundwater or Suez usage. And so that's why Public Works is taking this active, somewhat aggressive approach to make sure that these systems are being maintained, both the existing systems and these laterals that are serving the systems. As many of these systems were developed, they were managed by the original owners. When these were farm lands, the owners would clear their ditches. They would make sure the conveyance of this water is maintained. Well, now as they've been subdivided, there's less interest in maintaining these. And so for example, we have one lateral association that basically says it's a gentleman who's been in his 90s. He's been doing this for 30 plus years. He physically can't do it anymore. And he's reached out to the city saying, if somebody doesn't start maintaining this, then nobody's going to maintain it. Nobody is stepping up to do it. And they're not going to call for water in that lateral. And everybody downstream is going to lose the access to surface water. So yes, we want to make sure we're preserving and maintaining the surface water rights so our groundwater resources are not used.
Thank you. I'm remembering the context. Thank you. From the previous meeting. Thank you.
Commissioner Crowley, I saw you had a hand raised. Do you still have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do in part. I was more interested in the new services or the annexations and the new subs that would be now served by the district. John, is there any additional investment required on the part of the district to extend service into these 3 new subdivisions?
Commissioner Crowley, thank you for the question. The pressure irrigation systems in these new subdivisions is already existing. Now, we did do a condition assessment of them, and their systems are not up to city standards. So there will be some capital investment to bring these up to city standards, the type of pump, the type of drives that we use, the way we operate things, and to tie them into our telemetry and SCADA systems. But we're not building brand new systems. We're not putting in pipeline. Basically, we're taking over these assets that are already working. They're already providing pressure irrigation to these subdivisions. It's just that their HOA is basically non-existent. The only reason these subdivisions have an HOA is for this pressure irrigation. And these subdivisions are now 40 years older, plus or minus, and they have no interest in operating it anymore.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? All right, hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
Chair Gravatt, I move
Yes,
for the
Commissioner Collette.
approval. Sorry, I move for the approval of the recommendation to the Mayor and City Council of the Boise Municipal Irrigation District assessment rate of $395 per acre for the 2022 water year, unchanged from the previous year.
I'll second that.
And we have a second from Commissioner Crowley. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Is that it's 935.
Right.
It's 935 per acre. So I think they said 395. Just make sure it's that we said
Sorry, my bad.
it's 935. Just make sure.
Yes, 935.
Okay. Making sure we are good to go?
Yes, thank you. With the point of clarification that the motion is for $935 per acre, I believe everybody understands the motion and it is clear.
All right. With that, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
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 And any opposed, the same sign. Hearing none, the motion carries. And thank you for that presentation.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, the next item on our agenda is the fiscal year 2023 budget background, and I will turn it back over to staff.
Thank you, Chair Gravatt. This is the initiation of the FY23 budgeting process. I know it may feel like we just finished the FY22 process, but such is life at the city. We jump right into the next fiscal year. So Heather Buchanan, our Chief Administrative Officer, is going to give the presentation introing you all to the budget process for FY23. I think there'll be at least 3 more presentations after this one to wrap up the FY23 process. So Heather. Oh, sure.
Okay, I think I'm on now. Chair, commission members, as Steve mentioned, this is the first of our budget presentations for the year, kind of the similar series that we do each year. I think everyone on the commission so far has seen or participated in our budget process. So this shouldn't be like anything new. It's a similar presentation that we kick off each year. So you all are probably getting to the point where you can give the presentation back to me as well as I try and give it to you. So bear with me on that. I know it's maybe this just routine information, but please ask any questions along the way. So budget overview. There we go. So overview of the presentation today, we'll talk about the division, the public works divisions and fund structure, talk about the budget overview, and then what the budget approval process will be. So we'll jump right in. Public Works has 5 different funds: general fund, the water and renewal fund, municipal irrigation fund, geothermal fund, and the solid waste fund. The general fund is a shared fund among 13 departments of the city. So there are different, it's a shared pool of revenues basically that those different departments participate in. So there's property tax, sales tax, liquor tax, permit and design fees, fines and forfeitures, interest revenue, a variety of different revenues that are shared and allocated to the different departments for their use. The other 4 funds that are shown on the slide in blue are what are called enterprise funds. And so that basically means that those funds operate as if they were basically a business. So the fees and charges that are charged to the users of those services for each of the funds basically support the services that are provided within each of those different funds or utilities there. And then within Public Works itself, we have 6 divisions and as we go through, I'll map out which divisions are within each of the funds, but the different divisions are engineering, environmental administration, operations, climate action, and the facility program management division. So within our budget, there are different components of the budget. We have the capital side of the budget and the operating budget. Within capital, we have 4 different types of project drivers that we often talk about. So there's the condition projects, or we often refer to this also as repair and maintenance. There are regulatory projects, level of service projects, and capacity projects. And then on the operations side of things, we have the revenues that are in each of the different funds. And then for the expenditure side, there's a personnel budget, operations and maintenance budget, and an equipment budget. So as we dive into each of the different funds, I'll briefly talk about what different services are provided within each of the different divisions for that fund. And then we'll talk about how much budget is in each of the funds and what the breakout of those are. So within the general fund, the different divisions and services that are represented, the first is the facility program management division. And there are 2 sub-teams of that. And one is aptly named facility program management, and the other is facility service and operations. So facility service and operations is in charge of maintaining any of the city's general facilities. So think of City Hall West, the fire stations, and a variety of other facilities. And then facility program management is in charge of the capital side of that, then of just developing, for example, if we were doing, I hate to use the example of the main library, but that was one that came to mind, or developing a new fire station. They're in charge of designing and developing those projects and getting them through the implementation process. And then once they're complete, facility services and operations takes over. The next division is the climate action division. This is our newest division for Public Works, and a really important one as far as our citywide initiatives. So the different areas within this one are climate action, sustainability, air quality, and energy. The next one division would be environmental, and the 2 areas within general fund would be water resources and the stormwater team. And last but not least in the general fund is the engineering team. So this would include drainage, hillside permitting, and the street lighting utility. So for the budget itself, our operations budget is roughly $7.6 million. And this is roughly what we have budgeted for fiscal year 2022. Revenues, as I already mentioned, that support the general fund include property tax, sales tax, liquor tax, and any of our permit fees within our fund that we charge. On the right side of the slide, you can see the breakout of the operational expenditure budget. Roughly 37% of the budget is related to personnel. 21% is related to utilities. So this would be utilities for operation of the streetlight system, and also any of the utilities that are utilized in the different general facilities. So City Hall West, City Hall, and so forth. And then we've got a little bit of minor repair and maintenance, indirect costs, which these would be where we're paying our central service departments for the services that this team, our Public Works department utilizes. We have some professional services, and rounding it out is a supply and miscellaneous budget. We also do have a capital budget related to our general fund departments, and this is primarily the facility service and operations maintenance budget, and then the streetlight budget if there's any streetlight repairs or installation of new streetlights. So next is the water renewal system. We've mentioned many times that the water renewal system is the city's single largest asset when you consider all of the facilities and pipes and so forth in the ground. And I think our number here is a little dated. We had 2 billion. I think we've updated in that, and it's actually, I believe, 3 billion is our current value of the system. But it includes the Lander Street Water Renewal Facility, the West Boise Water Renewal Facility, the Phosphorus Removals Facility, the 20 Mile South Farm Utility Maintenance Building, and then over 1,000 miles of pipe and 29 lift stations. So a lot going on there, and as you know, a lot to come as well. So our water renewal fund, the operations budget is just over $58 million for fiscal year 22. As mentioned before, the revenues that are generated by providing the services to our customers are what provide for the operations. We also have crop sales. So our 20 Mile South Farm, we do sell those crops to dairies and so forth in the area, and that helps offset some of the costs of the operation of that facility. We have interest revenue from our fund balances. So a variety of revenues that support the operations. On the right side of the slide, again, is that breakout of our costs. So as with the general fund, personnel is about 37%. Utilities for operating the different facilities is roughly 5%. Some minor repair and maintenance at 7%, indirects and risk management at 9%. We have a little bit more for professional services. Some of our planning work is included in that at 9%, and supplies 8%. Chemicals 3%, because chemicals are very important to the operation of our facilities. And you'll also see on this slide, depreciation is about 22%. So I think we've talked about depreciation before. It's the accounting function that allows us to capture back a portion of our asset value over time, so we can incorporate that into our rate structure. So on our capital budget for the Water Renewal Fund, again, revenues that support the capital budget are user fees. And then we also charge a connection fee when a new user connects to our system. Some of the improvements that we have ongoing right now, the Lander Street improvements, the phase 1 of Lander Street is completing this year. And we'll also start working on Lander Street phase 2. We're starting, I should have included that on the slide and I didn't. We're starting work for our 3rd water renewal facility. Some of the planning work is included there. We have collection system rehabilitation and some major repair and maintenance projects going on. Our geothermal system, the graphic here shows, it's kind of hard to see all the detail, but it shows just a visual of where the system goes. And if you're orienting there and know the city, it's kind of a fun graphic, but it shows the downtown area of Boise, and then all the colorful lines demonstrate the supply and collection lines for the system. And so it shows that most of our service is provided downtown, and there's a little leg off that goes towards the bottom of the graphic there that is the service over to the Boise State University. I think some of my statistics on here are probably a little bit old. I believe we're up to about 90 accounts, over 6 million of square feet heated by the system, 21 plus miles of pipe. So it's a really unique system. I believe we're the largest geothermal system in the United States or in the world, United States. I always get that wrong. So geothermal, then our operations budget for 2022 is roughly $917,000. Again, revenues that support the service are user fees here and interest. So on the right side, you can see there's not as much personnel allocated to this fund. We have one position, which is John Gunnarsson. He's the one FTE that's allocated to this fund. And then repair and maintenance projects, we've been focusing a lot on strategic repairs and maintenance for this system. So the maintenance costs for that right now are at 34%. It also shows depreciation for the systems about 32%. Capital budget, again, is supported by connection fees, grants, and contributions. We have a really great partnership with CCDC, and so our one of our projects this year is a partnership project with CCDC where we've paid for some of the pipe and they're paying for the installation of that. So they're a really wonderful partner for us in this program. The Municipal Irrigation District, I won't go into a lot of detail on the system itself. The graphic here again is prior to the annexations that John was talking to you about this evening, but kind of graphically shows where some of those systems are at on the map in the Fairview 5 Mile Maple Grove area. The Municipal Irrigation Fund, the operational budget is roughly $43,000. So it's a pretty small fund. Again, revenues are user fees and interest. The fund has about 35% of repair and maintenance budget, 33% with supplies and miscellaneous, and about 14% depreciation, and also 14% of utilities. So it's really focused on just providing that service to the customers there. Currently, there is not a capital budget. If there is a project that's needed potentially in the future for those subdivisions, we would propose that and bring that back to the commission for approval. And last then not least is our solid waste fund. And here's the graphic for the CURB programs that are related to the solid waste fund. So we have a compost program for residential households, recycling, glass, household hazardous waste, the energy bag program, and trash service as well. So the operational budget for the solid waste fund is just shy of $40 million. Again, supported with user fees and interest, just like the rest of the enterprise funds. You can see from the graphic, the largest portion of our budget is for the contracts that are that we have with Republic Services to haul and operate the compost facility as well. We also have landfills shown on here at 22%, so that's for disposal of trash. And a minimal amount of personnel here. Most of the personnel to provide the service are within the Republic Services contracts. So let's see. So last but not least, then the budget approval process. So right now we're up in the upper right kind of quadrant with in the January through April timeframe, where we'll be doing presentations to the commission regarding the capital budget, the operational budget, any FTE requests and so forth. We'll be asking for your approval of those items and our cash flow rate projections in probably the April timeframe. We pass that information then on to our central finance department, and they bundle that information that we've created with all of the citywide departments for presentation to city mayor and city council. And that happens in June. There is a budget workshop, usually the last Tuesday in June, where mayor and council make approvals, motions to approve items within the budget. It moves on to a budget and fee hearing in July. And then finally a budget adoption in August. And then we start back again with our fiscal year starting in October. So our fiscal year runs from October 1st through September 30th of each year. So, and this year intermixed with the budget approval process, we're also continuing work on our financial plan. So in the January through April timeframe, we'll also be bringing forward to you information on our cost of service plan for the water renewal fund, any rate modifications and rate plan adjustments related to that fund as well. So connection fee information for that included. So there will be some additional pieces related to the water renewal fund this year. And with that, I believe that's the end of my presentation. So, and this was informational only, so no motion was required. Any questions?
Awesome. Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the commission?
Commissioner Gravatt, I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner Ellis.
I feel silly asking this, but I'm trying to figure out so I wrote down the water and the solid waste and the geo. Where does the budget for the climate action, where does that go under?
Chair Gravatt, Commission Member Ellis, thank you for the question. So let me scroll back up.
I think I missed it.
So the climate action is here in the general
In
fund.
the general fund. Okay, thank you.
So it's a portion of this $7.6 million.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Awesome.
And
Thank you.
Chair Gravatt, just an additional point to make on that is that in recent years, the mayor's office has provided additional funding on certain initiatives, climate action initiatives. So we've gotten, I think, close to like $300,000 in funding for different initiatives like energy efficiency programs for vulnerable communities. We got additional funding to complete the climate action roadmap. So those kind of things can happen on a kind of one-off basis with the mayor's office and council.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other questions from the commission? All right, hearing none, I will thank you for that presentation
Thank you.
as we kick off this budget design process. All right, and the next order of business on our agenda is an update on the Watershed Water and Climate Center. And I will turn it back over to staff.
Thank you, Chair Gravatt. And with us remotely this evening to present on this topic is our Community Engagement Lead in Public Works, Colin Hickman, and the Watershed Manager, Cindy Bush. And I will turn it over to Colin and Cindy to kick us off.
Thank you, Steve. Chair Gravatt, commission members, nice to see you all. And I will try and share my screen real quick. So hopefully this goes as planned. And I can just see Commissioner Hilton. Can you see that on your screen? You're the only one. All right. Thank you so much. All right. Good evening again, Chair Gravatt, commission members. Nice to be with you this evening. Both Cindy and I are really excited to be able to share some updates with you, not only on some of the work that's been happening as we look at transitioning to a water and climate science center at the Watershed, but also about some next steps and just share some of the additional information that has come out of the work that we've been doing. You all received, I believe, a vision book along with your memo. So hopefully you were able to take some time and look through that. So our presentation here this evening won't be incredibly detailed, but you have a lot of that detail in the accompanying memo that you received previously, but we're happy to take questions as we go along.
Chair Gravatt and commissioners, I'd like to start off with a brief history of the Boise Watershed. It was in the early 2000s that Public Works leadership and the Public Works Commission supported and envisioned an education center that would teach our next generation all about water protection and water conservation. In 2005, a Public Works Commissioner, Donna Marie Hayes, formed a nonprofit which helped raise funds from the community and partner with the city in this effort. In 2008, the Education Center opened, and it was an exciting moment. It drew in quite a few diverse audiences through the years, and it really has become the face of the utility. I forgot to mention, this is located out at the West Boise Water Renewal facility, and there we have the opportunity to really show the public and interact as the face of the utility. Over the years, the city has reinvested in the Education Center. And in fact, in 2017, the city invested an additional $3 million to expand in the outdoors with a 2-acre river campus. The river campus, as pictured in that photograph, encompasses a play area, public art, a water feature, and landscaping. And it's really become a destination and attraction for families and diverse audiences. Since we opened in 2008, we have served over 275,000 people, and annually we educate 18,000 people on site and 9,000 off site, and those are pre-COVID numbers. Next. I wanted to provide just a brief snapshot of our programming. It is truly the programming, exhibits, and public art that are the pillars of the Education Center. And through the years, a variety of programs have been developed, and this is what we currently offer. Our K through 12 field trips and outreach are still our bread and butter and serve the largest audience with our partnerships with the Boise School District and West Ada School District. We offer many tours, including the Water Renewal Facility Tour and Exhibit Hall Tour. And then we offer a variety of different events and programs for different audiences. So we have families, adults, educators, and even the general public through the Watershed Watch citizen science event that takes place annually. Also, we offer deeper engagement with the watershed and with our utility through volunteers and master naturalists. In fact, just this past year, we recruited our first volunteer to lead water renewal facility tours. So that was exciting. And of course, over the last year and a half, we have punted to virtual education and have offered more than 50 recorded videos for educating at-home audiences, as well as we offer virtual field trips. So we're pretty excited about these programs that have been developed, but we're really poised to look at transforming these programs and aligning them with the climate action roadmap, as well as our movement to a climate and water science center. Next.
So I think it's really important when Cindy and I and city leadership started really exploring this a long while ago, we wanted to ensure that it was grounded in kind of the why behind why would we look to move toward being the nation's first climate and water science center. And we really broke it down into 5 points that we think are of paramount importance. The first, you all commissioners are likely very familiar with the work that Steve Hubble, the Climate Action Division and city leadership did in passing, and certainly City Council in passing Boise's Climate Action Roadmap, which really lays out and sets the goal of a carbon neutral city, our entire community by 2050. A big piece of that and a big way that we're going to get there is by community education and advocacy. And we really see the watershed's role as being a catalyst and a leader going forward in providing that critical part of the plan and in order to get our community to carbon neutral by 2050. I think secondly, we just really wanted to reimagine what an education center could look like, specifically built around the impacts that we know are going to be specific to our city, not climate change in general, but specific to our city. The city of Boise and Public Works conducted several years ago a climate adaptation assessment, which basically examined out of all the climate impacts, what would that look like for us here in Boise? And they identified 8 impacts, and 6 out of the 8, so the vast majority, were related to water. And so you can see the tie between Boise's water renewal system, the watershed, and climate is there, and it's important. And we thought that was a great rationale for making this move as well. It continues to elevate Boise as a national and regional leader. Boise is seen already in many regards as pushing the envelope around climate leadership, pushing the envelope around water management leadership. And so we really view this evolution of the watershed as taking the next logical step and continuing to position Boise as a leader in a lot of these areas. As Cindy mentioned, certainly the connection to water management will never go away. Being located at a water renewal facility was obviously not by accident. It provides that connection to our entire community with how we manage water at the city of Boise. It's one water from use to treatment to back to the Boise River, and even looking forward with recycled water where the utility is going. It's incredibly important that we provide that touch point and that community connection. And then last, I think more, just a fact of the matter is that we're seeing increasing demand. Cindy illustrated just the number that we're seeing, and those continue to grow. There's more interest. We're obviously a growing community, so there's more folks requesting programming, requesting tours, being at the watershed. And when you couple that with outdated exhibits that, as Cindy mentioned, were installed in 2007, you really get a pretty good impetus for how we can make the jump and how we can lead in a lot of these areas.
Commissioners, I'd like to share a progress update. Over the last year and a half, we've really been looking at how to make this transition. What's the scope and scale of this project? And so in late 2020, we engaged work with an architect and an exhibit design firm who we worked with over the course of 6 months to develop that vision for the exhibits and for the exhibit hall as a whole. During that 6-month process, we held several stakeholder engagement meetings, and I wanted to thank Chair Gravatt for being a part of that process and offering your input. It was really valuable to hear from our community members, and the exhibit design team captured that input in the new vision book. And that vision book, as mentioned, was part of your packet this evening. I'll be speaking more about that in just one moment. I also wanted to mention some progress we've made in our programming. We were fortunate to receive an Idaho STEM Action Center grant this past year, and that really has launched some of our climate and water programs to the next level. We've been able to offer a webinar series. We're planning an educator workshop as well as a youth climate summit this spring. Also, we are a partner with NASA's Earth to Sky program, and that enables us connection to the federal level and to scientists who then we can share those resources with educators and informal educators in our community. We will be putting on a NASA Earth to Sky workshop later this spring. Next. Next, I'm going to specifically walk you through some highlights of the vision book. And this vision book is really, it's captured the excitement of the project and it's beautifully put together. But I do want to speak specifically to the exhibit project goals. And we've narrowed those down to 4 goals. Really, we want the exhibits to capture a wider range of visitors. The current ones that are in place were designed for upper elementary students. And they're all of a similar style. We really want to speak to different learning styles, different abilities, as well as different age groups, and attract a wider range of visitors. Secondly, we'd like the exhibits to be exciting and attractive. We want them to be the draw for people to come back and visit us. Third, we'll always focus locally on the Boise River watershed. We want people to feel that connection to their own backyard and special places throughout Idaho. And fourth, the goal of the exhibits is to build a community to stimulate action that will go hand in hand with the city's actions. Next. The themes of the exhibits were narrowed down to 4 major themes. The first being one water, and that is that all water on earth is all the water we're ever going to have. It's so important to take care of it, to protect and conserve it. Additionally, we'll highlight the city's role in renewing water and eventually in reusing water. And so that's an opportunity to really engage with ratepayers and have them better understand the process of water renewal. Secondly, the Boise River watershed maintains a theme. We're going to connect folks to their backyard and the changes that are taking place to our water resources as a result of climate change. Third, we'll focus on the city's climate action roadmap and the great efforts thus far in climate action. We can share our leadership and ideas for the community to get involved in those solutions. And finally, community members will have a chance to provide input and to discuss solutions with each other. And so there will be kind of this listening and sharing opportunity within the exhibits. Next. I wanted to highlight one of the themes just to give you an idea of what these exhibits could look like. And I've chosen the one water theme. Since that fits so well with us, we have the opportunity again to showcase our watershed and water resources locally. We can showcase the water renewal process. We could have people in the community bring in water samples and compare the water quality of those. So these just kind of give you a snapshot of what that could look like in the exhibit hall. Next. Along with new exhibits will likely come a demand for a new visitor flow. And what that could look like is better signage and wayfinding as you approach the center, a wider opening, more prominent opening as you approach the exhibit hall, converting the library into more of an exhibit area, and expanding our messaging potentially into the theater and restrooms. We would be, of course, utilizing hands-on exhibits and techniques for a diverse group of learners, including those of different abilities. Next. Finally, I'll conclude with the timeline. We are at the end of the vision process, which is the blue bar, and you can kind of see the blue arrow on that timeline. We're poised to begin with an exhibit designer search. The exhibit design process will last approximately 6 to 10 months, and that will include opportunities to engage stakeholders and community members in shaping the vision even further. And about 6 to 12 months out, we'll be engaging with an exhibit fabricator for the production and prototyping of those exhibits, with additional stakeholder opportunities to review those. And then finally, our goal is to install the new exhibits in fall of 2023. Next.
Commissioners, I next wanted to touch on the funding. So the project team, Public Works leadership has budgeted $4.5 million over 2 years for the work that Cindy has helped outline. That will be paid for with the water renewal revenue. And what that includes is building design and renovation, as Cindy just helped run us through, exhibit design and fabrication, and additional community engagement to help shape what the center and what those exhibits look like. Really briefly, before we wrap up here, I also wanted to just walk you through kind of some of the next steps, what's ahead of us. As Cindy mentioned, in the next several months, we'll be going out and looking for an exhibit designer. It's obviously kind of a specialty market, but we really want to make sure that we hire someone that's top notch and can do an excellent job to meet community expectations and certainly our expectations, to make sure that we are the national leader that we talk about, as well as hire an architect that can help that space work that Cindy talked about, the work on the facility itself to accommodate the new mission, the new vision. Additional community engagement will be happening. Cindy illustrated a little bit about the next phase. And when we start to get into exhibit design, exhibit building, even prototyping of exhibit, community engagement is going to be part of that along the way. We really want to make sure that the new Watershed, in whatever form that takes, is reflective of what we hear, the input that we get from a diverse group of community members. And that has been and will continue to be incredibly important to the work that we do. Not only that, we want to make sure that it's not just about the exhibits, it's also about the education, the way that we provide that education. And so Cindy and her team have done an outstanding job already of continuing to develop, build, train around new programming, and that will only continue to grow. We want to make sure that the programming we're offering at the Watershed matches the level that the center will become and the exhibits will become as well. So there will be a lot more work to come as far as developing programming that engages residents, community members, businesses of all ages, and diverse walks of life. Two major dates that I also wanted to flag for the commission. Certainly Earth Day coming up in April of 2022. For Earth Day or nearby, we have slated what we're calling an unveiling event at the Watershed. And this would really be the opportunity to invite the public out, the community out, share with them the vision for where we're going with the Watershed, and also a really good opportunity to start to seek some of that input. We'll have some early design concepts out there. We'll have some early Watershed space concepts out there, as well as some new programming. And we really want to hear from the community about where they'd like to see this go, how we can improve, how we can do better, what they'd like out of their new Watershed. We find that incredibly important. So that'll be in April of this year as a way to really kick off that community engagement process and let the community know where we're heading. And then, as Cindy mentioned at the kind of end of that timeline that she shared, aiming for a grand opening in the fall or winter of 2023. And then lastly, instead of ending on next steps, I wanted to come back around to impact. This has certainly been a project of passion for certainly Cindy and myself, but also one that we believe in wholeheartedly. We've talked a lot at the outset of this work that what is that feeling? What do we want people, once they go through a new watershed, whatever that may look like, what's that? What do we want them to take away? And where we landed was leave feeling connected, informed, inspired, and hopeful. And so we threw together some photos that really reflect that. But just thinking about the impact that the watershed could have going forward, as Cindy mentioned, educating over 30,000 Boiseans every single year, COVID withstanding, obviously, but around the impacts, around the climate work that we're doing. We know that that's so integral to how we meet our carbon neutral goals. So the thought of engaging and educating over 30,000 every single year is incredibly important. The leadership that the watershed could have, talking about partnerships with NASA, talking about partnerships with Boise State, the opening of new doors and opportunities as we continue to become that national leader. I put in there, you'll see kind of the middle bottom. This was several years ago, but this was a group of water management professionals internationally. We had several from Iraq, I believe. I didn't blow that up too large for the mercy of Steve and I, because Steve, we looked quite a bit younger there. It was only several years ago, but I kept that one pretty small. But that goes to show that the watershed will be and continue to be kind of that beacon for how Boise manages our water, how we are facing climate action. And it's incredibly important as we move forward. But also not resting on our laurels, continuing to bring in new audiences, folks that have never been engaged with the watershed, have never been engaged with climate action. That will be our call, to continue to seek and bring in new members, whether it's through exhibits, through programming, new age groups, folks that have just never been a part of this work that the city does. How do we bring them in and engage them in meaningful ways? And I think that community engagement is incredibly important, because as we move forward, this isn't something, especially around our climate goals, our water goals, this isn't something that the city can do alone. It takes the community. And so how do we provide really meaningful opportunities for the community to engage with us? And then lastly, I would just say that I think, especially around climate change and communicating climate change, the real challenge is around, it can sometimes feel pretty nebulous, pretty ethereal. And so the work that we are looking at moving forward with provides an opportunity to touch, to feel, to engage with the climate change and the climate impacts that we'll see here in Boise, and it makes it real. And so we're really excited for kind of the next steps and the process forward. So I just wanted to share that to wrap up our presentation. And with that, Cindy and I will stand for any questions.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that update, that presentation. It's really exciting to see the direction that we're all headed with this initiative. I've been super excited to be involved and look forward to supporting however I can in the future. It's really invigorating to hear how far we've come so far. Any questions from the commission?
Chair Gravatt, I have a question, and I'll apologize in advance if a child comes bursting through. They seem to be intent on following me around this evening. So I saw that you had the description of where the funding was coming from, the general fund, and talking about partnerships with Boise State and other educational institutions. What sort of other public-private partnerships have been explored in terms of funding opportunities, and having had some experience with just construction industry in general? You start out with a budget, things escalate, things get out of hand. Is there sort of a backup plan for what you could do if funding ends up becoming tight?
Yeah, Chair Gravatt, Commissioner Collette, thank you for that question. I think the first, I'll take maybe the second part of that question first. We rely pretty heavily on our internal team. So we work closely with the project management team here at the city of Boise under Rob Bosefield's shop. And in fact, Rob has helped us quite a bit with, and they are engaged with all of our major CIP projects. So they have a really good sense for exactly as you mentioned, cost escalations. And so all that will be factored in. And I think we've taken a pretty judicious approach, and we will go forward in a way that takes all those things into factor. As far as the kind of partnerships, we are open to any and all partnerships going forward. I think, as Cindy mentioned, the formation of the watershed at the very beginning, was started in really in collaboration and partnership with a nonprofit organization. The challenge that I think we ran into was that organization was losing engagement, losing focus, but there was this body of assets, essentially, exhibits that needed to be repaired and replaced. And so now we have this center that really needs to be updated. So Cindy and I have had a lot of conversations. We've actually met with, the library. We've met with the zoo to kind of explore what that friends of model looked like. So partnerships like that are absolutely on our radar going forward, and we'll absolutely explore all of those. So hopefully that answered your questions. And Cindy, please feel free to offer up if I missed anything.
Yes, I will just add the current nonprofit is actually in the process of dissolving. And so when we thought about how they brought value to the exhibits, certainly in the beginning with the capital campaign, raising over $1 million was incredible and necessary to kick off the Watershed. But then we became a little bit hindered by their funding mechanism because the exhibits had to be fundraised for one at a time. So there wasn't a possibility of doing multiple exhibits or even repair and maintenance and pausing and doing that before we moved forward with new exhibits. So it was a little cumbersome in that model. And that's why we were exploring potentially other models by talking with the zoo and the library. So we are definitely open to other partnerships as we move forward.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission?
Commissioner Gravatt.
Yes, Commissioner Ellis.
I don't really have a question. I just wanted to thank you guys for the packet and the agenda. There is a lot to review, and I haven't gotten through all of it, but I'm really impressed. And I have to say, I'm already excited about the water quality sample. I'll be there with my bottle, and I can think of a lot of kids who are going to be really excited about that. I can think of some grandparents who are going to be excited. No, thank you for sharing that example. And then I also wanted to, I looked at the list of the acknowledgements, and I just was really glad to see, I saw Chris Taylor from the Boise School District. As a shout out to Chris Taylor, and that you've got some teachers in there that I've worked with a lot. So I was really glad to see Misha Smith, Aaron Stutzman, and then it's a student too. That was really exciting that you had a student on there, Gigi, from the Watershed Action Team. It was really cool to see that. Thank you.
Chair Gravatt, Commissioner Ellis, thank you so much for that. Yeah, we really appreciate that. And certainly invite and welcome the Public Works commissioners, your level of involvement, as Cindy mentioned earlier with Chair Gravatt, and certainly welcome and invite you all to be as engaged as you would like to be in this project, because we certainly welcome and respect your input.
Thank you for that. All right. Any final comments, fellow commissioners?
I have one comment.
Commissioner
You
Hilton.
can hear me. I just appreciate the level of detail and the information that was shared today in all of the presentations. I thought they were all exceptionally well done, and you guys always do a great job on that. So I think it's a high bar that we've come to expect from this team, and today you certainly met that. So thank you.
Yes, seconded. All right. With that, thank you so much for that presentation. Oh, yeah, Director Burgos.
Chair Gravatt, I just had a couple of maybe closing comments. First, just on the Watershed, personally, I'm just so excited about the project because it for me and the team over the last several years, we've recognized how difficult it's been to try to communicate a sense of urgency around climate issues. And I think nationally, we've done a very poor job of that. And so our hope is, I think that's changing in the recent probably year or so. I'm seeing more people get engaged because I think it's becoming much more tangible to folks. And so the hope is that the Watershed will become part of that story. And I'm personally very excited about it, and also excited about the idea of getting the community engaged. That's when we talk within the Climate Action Division, Steve Hubble, one of our biggest hurdles or opportunities, I'll say, is getting the community engaged. City staff, city government can't solve the climate issue. It's got to be a community-wide effort. And so the watershed is going to play a critical role in that. And so just wanted to make that comment. On the financial plan or the budget process, I just wanted to give a little more information on that. And Heather's always done a good job of framing a couple things for me as a director. When we go through a budget process, it's really a snapshot of that particular fiscal year. So all we're asking you to approve as part of the budget is the FY23 projects and budgets. But there is a broader context, and Heather mentioned that we'll be sharing with you the overall financial plan and the cost of service study. And I just want to spend just a second talking about those. So the fiscal year budget is for FY23. The financial plan really is that bigger picture, looking out over the next 10 years, how are we going to fund the capital improvements? And so the analogy that Heather uses, and I've stolen from her, is we're really trying to determine the size of the pie. How big does the pie have to be? And then once that's determined, over the next 10 years, how are we going to slice the pie, i.e. the cost of service? Who pays what for what they're sending to the system? And so we want to make sure that's fair. We want to make sure it's equitable. And so just as we go through the budget process, yes, we're going to be focusing on FY23, but we are also going to share a broader context with you, the broader financial plan, as well as that cost of service study. So just wanted to provide some context as we go into the next several months of budget discussions. I would be remiss if we didn't add that Commissioner Hilton is also going to be participating in the geothermal design sprint. I know John's been involved. I want to make sure that we recognize that she's taking the time out to help us on that as well.
Thank you. I'm excited about it. It'll be fun.
It should be really interesting. It's the design sprint process is one we've started using at the city and one that we're finding to be really effective. I think the staff that's involved is finding it to be as really interesting, but also a lot more work than maybe they were expecting. So it's going to be, I think, a fun process for the commissioners to participate in. And then last but not least, really excited to share with the commission. I think we shared back in the summer that we submitted a letter of interest to the EPA's WIFIA program, WIFIA standing for the Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act, WIFIA. That act was passed in 2014 to try to provide funding for innovative projects that are happening around water nationally. And we were invited to send in the letter of interest by EPA. And we found out just after our Public Works Commission in December that the city was invited to apply for the WIFIA program, which basically means we've been accepted. So what does that mean for us as a city? The bond election, if the bond didn't pass, we wouldn't be able to access these types of things. So this will be a very low interest rate loan from the federal treasury, from EPA, to the tune of $272 million. Based on some preliminary discussions we've had with EPA, we think the interest rate will be about 1.75%. Now that'll get locked in here in the next several months, but extremely low interest rate. I can't thank staff enough for the rallying around this summer. We were asked to submit the letter of interest, and in about a month, Heather, we pulled together all of the information with some help from our consultant team, all the information that had to go to EPA. It was a little bit of a fire drill, but we got it done. And just so excited for staff, for the success of that, and also just excited for the community. We're one of only, I think, around 70 cities or communities that have been awarded since 2014 the WIFIA loan. So we're working with EPA. We're hoping to get all the paperwork finalized, the application finalized in the coming months. We'll provide more detailed information, obviously, to the commission on this, but I just wanted to share that good news. But for the voters giving us permission to pursue bond financing, we couldn't access these types of programs. So just so excited at the dominoes, how they are falling for us. It's just exciting, and I just wanted to share that with the commission.
Well, thank you for those updates, and I commend all the hard work of all the staff. It just shows what a quality team we've got here at Public Works. Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
And I will toss it back to Director Burgos for any updates from the director's reports?
No specific updates from the director's reports, but I'll certainly stand for any questions you may have. If you've reviewed the material and there was anything that jumped out that you'd like to discuss further or have questions, please jump in.
Awesome. Any questions or comments from the commission? All right, hearing none, is there any other business to come before the commission today? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Commissioner
Sure.
Glavine,
Yes, Commissioner Ellis.
I'd like to raise a motion to adjourn the meeting.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second,
A motion and seconded. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
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 The opposed, the same sign. Hearing none, the motion carries and we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.